Hey everyone, in today's video, I'm going to be going through my dividend income in my tax-free savings account for each of the last 9 years. We're going to look at what I started with, what I grew it into in terms of annual dividends in my tax-free savings account. We're going to look at what stocks over the years paid me the most. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to look at how much I've gotten in dividends overall for my TFSA over the last 9 years. So make sure to stick around till the end of the video for that. That one will be interesting. If you like this kind of content, give me a big thumbs up on this video, but we're just going to jump right in. As you can see on the screen here, it's a screenshot of my 2015 TFSA dividend income summary. In 2015, my first year I started getting dividends in my tax-free savings account. You can see I got over $400, just over $400 of dividends in this first year. About 1/4 of that came from Rogers Communications, stock that I still own today, and almost half of it came from Cominar REIT. You can see here in the middle, about $184. That was a REIT that I think had a pretty high dividend yield on it. One that mostly was out of Quebec. They were multi-use REIT, so they had office. I think they also had some retail, some industrial and whatnot. But it didn't age overly well, so I'm glad that that's still not one of my big positions, and I got out of that at some point. But it's really interesting just to see the different companies here. Boston Pizza Royalty, Dream Office REIT, Rogers Communications, one that I still own. So it's interesting to see. I've owned Rogers for almost 10 years now, which is crazy. But yeah, this is my 2015 dividend summary, $400 of income there. Going into 2016, so from 2015 to 2016, my income went from $400 to $1,100, as you can see on the top of the screen. But what also happened here is it looks like I invested in tons more stocks. So instead of just being concentrated in 3, 4, 5 names, I think this is almost the most stocks I've ever had in my TFSA. As you can read them down there, had some Loblaw, some Magna, some Manulife, National Bank, Northview Apartment REIT, Pizza I added, Pure Industrial, RioCan. Oh my gosh, just tons of stocks that were added to the portfolio. Looking at what ones paid me the most here, you can see Cominar still paid me the most, $350. Dream Office paying me $100. Pizza Royalty paying me a couple $100, and all these other companies kind of filling in the cracks there for me. So that's pretty good growth, 15 to 16, $400 to $1,100 of tax-free dividend income. Going into 2017, a lot more growth here, went from $1,100 to $1,800 in dividend income. A couple interesting things that you can see here. The first one is CN Rail. CN Rail is my biggest position today, so it's so cool to see it back in 2017, only paying me $17 a year in dividends. It was a tiny position. Maybe I didn't hold it for the whole year. That's partially why, but still very small CN Rail position, almost nothing in dividends. Now it pays me well over $1,000 a year in dividends across my accounts. Artis. I forgot I owned Artis REIT. This was I think primarily office REIT out somewhat west. I think they had office and stuff in Manitoba, Alberta, Calgary, places like that. They also had some retail. Ultimately decided to trade out of that one, put it in another REIT at some point. And you can see my RioCan position really starting to develop there, $132 a year in dividends back in 2017. Now I get way more than that on a monthly basis from RioCan. So it's crazy to see across my accounts how much my portfolio has grown over the year. Going into 2018, pretty stagnant. And it's one main reason why. Cominar REIT, which was a pretty high dividend paying REIT in terms of the yield, went from paying me almost $400 to paying me $28. So I obviously traded out of Cominar. I think there was some downward pressure on the stock. I liked other opportunities better. You can see here at the bottom, RioCan paid me $440. So I believe I probably dumped Cominar, built up my RioCan position, thought it was of higher quality. And long term, I'm glad I did that because I think Cominar is down significantly more over that time period as well. Looking at some of these other positions, I made a big push into banking. So Scotiabank in 2018, over $200 in dividends. TD, over $200 of dividends there, which is great. And then CN Rail went from just a tiny position to now paying me $156 a year in dividends. So even though I got rid of my highest dividend yielder, almost $400, 2018 was a year that I really fled more to quality, big banks, railways, etc., in order to get the same amount of total dividend income, but position it in a way that was likely going to grow significantly faster in the years to come. Going into 2019 here, 2019 here, I went from $1,800 up to $2,200 in dividends. So increased my dividends by about 20-25%. But you'll notice something else. If I go back here, 2018, 2017, 2016, I had huge accounts with tons of different stocks. Look how consolidated and much more easy it got in 2019. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 positions in my entire TFSA. Way more simplified, and still was able to just make sure I'm putting tons of my capital into whatever stocks I thought was going to perform the best, increase their dividends the most. If I go to 2018 here, it looks like I got rid of Pure Industrial, Northwest Healthcare, Northview Apartments, Extendicare, Enbridge Income Fund. All of those companies I sold and just put into the stocks here that are still on the screen in 2019, like Allied at the time, CN Rail, Pizza, RioCan, TD, that I must have really believed in at that time. So consolidation can make sense from time to time, especially for me. I probably started having more accounts in my portfolio than just my TFSA, so maybe was buying those stocks in other spots as well. So $2,200 in 2019, going into 2020. So it went from $2,200 to $2,400. Pretty slow year in 2020. Obviously, the pandemic hit. Some of my REITs had to cut their dividends. Some of them were temporary. Some of them were a bit longer term. So that's still worth noting. It looks like I added a couple more stocks here, like Northwest Healthcare maybe back. Oh, I always had Northwest Healthcare. But looks like I added Alphabet, added a few other stocks here. You can see some of these bigger positions of mine, like RioCan now paying me $600 a year, TD paying me almost $400, Bank of Nova Scotia over $300, CN Rail now up to $285. Remember, that was just $17 a few years back. So you can really see consolidation in top positions and then continuing to drive them in 2020. In 2021, I had almost no growth from 2020. Couple stocks that I had actually cut their dividends. You can see First Capital paid me $102 in 2021. In 2020, they paid me $122. I actually think I added more to it too, and I got less dividends from it. So that's just part of the pain of having some stocks that may be at higher risks of cuts, or when things happen like a pandemic, some industries are hurt a bit more than others. But generally speaking, I feel like at this point, my portfolio has a lot of great dividend growth stocks. Fortis increases every year. TD Banks, Bank of Nova Scotia, CN Rail also increasing their dividend very frequently. At that time, Allied was increasing their dividend by 2-3% on an annual basis as well. So I thought that I was positioning my portfolio to not only be one that pays me $2,500 a year, but also without even adding my contribution room for the next year, which I obviously would. But before that, I'm getting organic dividend growth as well. Going into 2022, that's when things started turning back around. The pandemic went in the rearview mirror, got up to $3,000 of dividends in my tax-free savings account. You can see here some of the things I did, like leverage my tax-free savings account for some high-yielding covered calls that pay ineligible monthly dividends. I'd have to pay a huge high tax rate on these if it wasn't for them living in a TFSA. CN Rail up to almost $400 in the year in dividends. RioCan about $500 there, so they got a bit of a cut during the pandemic, and they did a bit of a structural reorg where they're investing in more long-term appreciation growth, but still a sizable amount of money. And then even these other names here that are smaller, still pretty good chunks. Pizza paying me over $250 a month at that point. QSR, Restaurant Brands International, got added to the portfolio in 2022, paid me $73, give or take, in dividends. So really trying to make sure I'm doing both investing deeper in the stocks I really believe in for the long term, but also trying to leverage the benefits of a TFSA with something like the BMO cover call bank ETF, ticker is ZWB, and stocks that I believed had the opportunity to go up a lot in equity value, like Restaurant Brands International at the time. So just backing up a bit, went from 1,800 in 2018 to 2,200 in 2019 to 2,400 throughout the early days of the pandemic to $3,000 after the pandemic. And in 2023 so far, we're already at $2,500, only 8 months into the year. I'm on track right now, if I look at the projected income of dividends, to get to around $3,800 on the year. So just short, $3,850, $3,875, just short of $4,000 a year. So from 2015 to 2023, my dividend portfolio in my TFSA has grown from about $400 a month to $400 a year to $4,000 a year. And this is super, super important cash flow for me, just because it's tax-free. If I'm continuing to be able to compound it over a long period of time, I may get to the point in 10, 20 years from now where I have $20,000, $30,000 of dividend income coming from my TFSA that I can just take out on a tax-free basis to invest in my portfolio. So you see here, CN Rail to date already $250, RioCan $360, Rogers Communication $115. Some of the same stocks that you're used to seeing. Looks like I added some Meta and Google still there, which are non-dividend payers. I've since made decisions on those ones just to make sure I'm best optimizing my TFSA. But really proud of how far my TFSA has come just over the last 8-9 years in this account. Going over into the summary of how much total dividends I've gotten in my TFSA over the last 9 years. You can see here in the top corner, I've gotten over $17,000 in dividends paid to me in the last 9 years in my account. Obviously, now I'm on an annual basis of almost $4,000 a year, but this is also including those earlier days where I was doing $400, only $1,000. So this is a really incredible number that goes on top of unrealized gains in my account. So this isn't necessarily my total of returns by any means, but I got an additional almost $18,000 by the end of this year, maybe $19,000 of dividends throughout my TFSA that I haven't had to pay tax on. And then I shared in another video that I did as a broader review on my TFSA, which I'll put in the the description of this video for anyone who's interested, going through stock by stock of what I currently own now. But it just shows my return overall pretty in line. My portfolio here up 29% over the last number of years, up 8.8% on an annualized basis over the last 3 years. So kind of in line with the TSX, trailing the S&P 500 as the US markets have just gone up faster and had some more multiple expansion, includes all the big tech companies, which we don't get access to here in Canada. But overall, I'm pleased with my portfolio, even though I've trailed the TSX a bit. I think over time it ebbs and flows. I'm pretty much right there with it. I was ahead of it for a while. Now I'm slightly behind it. But I'm not trying to crush the market. I'm just trying to get a reliable stream of growing dividends in whatever way possible. So really pleased about that number. And if you like this kind of content, I'm about to do another video where I look at all my buys and sells and what stocks I made money on, what stocks I realized losses on in my TFSA over the last 9 years as well. So if you want to watch that video, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and be on the lookout for when that video comes out in a few days. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate that. And let me know what you think of my portfolio and what dividend stocks you're holding in your TFSA in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.